What happens when you prepare yourself to end your own life and then you don't do it? Do you tell someone or do you just pretend like it didn't happen? Because nobody wakes up and decides today is going to be the day to move towards suicide. There are so many thoughts of extreme confusion, anxiety, and depression that lead up to that overwhelming mental anguish and pain that lead up to those moments. My good friend PJ has been through this, and I've been urging him to share. So, although it's very awkward to talk about, he's going to allow himself the vulnerability to share in prayer that his story offers someone hope. You and I have talked about this a lot, but it's something that is not talked about in the public as much as it should be. And the reason for that is because it's freaking hard to talk about. How hard is it for you to share these details that you've been through?
It ebbs and flows. So there's times that it becomes really easy for me to talk about it. I'd say more so like in a journaling space. If I'm like journaling something, I use social media for example. Like a lot of my posts on social media when I talk about the suicide epidemic or suicide issue, those are like journal posts to me that I just publicly share.
Mhm.
When I start openly talking about it in person or like face to face with people or in large groups of people, that's when it gets uncomfortable, because it takes me right back to that spot I was in when I was suicidal. Suicidal. What a lot of people don't realize is I was suicidal for 7 years.
So that's the big question. The unanswered question is, by the time you hear about those successful efforts of suicide, it's always, he was so happy or she didn't seem like that kind of person. But there's a whole series of events that happens before that. There is feelings and thoughts that lead up to that. What is that? Or is there something that we're looking out for? Like, what were you going through?
It's hard to pinpoint for each person. Like a lot of people do say that. You always hear the cliche, like, oh, I would have never thought it was him. He was always so happy and go lucky, or there's no signs or anything. Like for a while, I was that happy go lucky guy. I always went out. I was super social, but I was social under the influence of alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
which would make me social. It would make me want to party, hang out, and do things. When I wasn't drinking, then I was isolated. And then the heavier my drinking got, the more the isolation became. And then that's when I would start shoving people away, and that goes over a course of time. But to answer your question on like what are those signs, it's hard to pinpoint specifically per person like what that could be. And one of the hardest things to hear is when people say like, "Oh, I would have never guessed him." Like he was always so happy, and it wasn't until a couple of years ago when there's a suicide in the local community that I finally spoke up a little bit about my own struggles with it, and I told them I could answer some of these questions, like that happy-go-lucky guy. When you guys all leave the room and he's there by himself, working off his buzz that he has, do you really think he's still that happy-go-lucky guy? No, he's miserable. He's miserable sitting there by himself. He's uncomfortable in his own skin. He does not feel good about himself. He's thinking about ways just to get out. He's strategizing over and over in his head if the world would just be a better place without him. And I'm speaking from experience. That's what I used to do. Like as soon as I was by myself, that's what would go on, and I would repeat over and over.
So alcohol was the numbing mechanism, or what role did the alcohol play?
Alcohol is definitely the numbing mechanism. When we're going back and forth overseas, like doing back to back deployments, I think you're getting those high dopamine hits, and you're working hard, and that work is paying off. But when you come back, it's hard to mirror that. It's hard to mirror what you live on deployment. So for me personally, it was alcohol. It was alcohol and then boys. And then once the alcohol like wasn't enough, it became prescriptions. Or once I had to go to a few brain clinics and whatnot, then it was more prescriptions. So now I'm essentially washing down basket loads of prescriptions on top of a half a bottle of Jack Daniels. In and I was functioning. Like the Navy at one point labeled me an extremely high functioning alcoholic. And I don't know. To this day, I still don't know how I could even walk around. But I think it's a combination of whether it's prescriptions, whether it's alcohol, other substances. The PTS plays a factor in it.
So let's back up a little bit because you mentioned the Navy and being diagnosed with high functioning anxiety,
High functioning
alcoholism.
and
But
anxiety.
the alcoholism was to numb and suppress the anxious feelings and thoughts of depression and things like that. So what does this have to do with the Navy? Were you feeling like this before you went in? Is it something that was triggered or tripped by the PTS or by your experience in the Navy? Because this is, I don't know one veteran that I've talked to that hasn't been on the verge of depression or having the suicidal ideations at some point.
That's a great question. I can't pinpoint back to anything like in my childhood or like prior to the Navy that would have gave me like signs of either depression, anxiety, anything like that. I don't feel like I ever really felt that experience before. It wasn't until probably around 2016 is when I started feeling off. I started feeling different. And that's when the numbing came into effect, like numbing myself with alcohol.
So is it, okay, so what was, at what point did you realize that something's not right here? Or did you?
I didn't for a long time. The big telltale sign for me is I quit wanting to go out. I didn't want to be social. So like my drinking got to a point where I was drinking so much I didn't want to be out in public and have any alcohol related incidents where I'd get in trouble, and because I was still doing my job fairly well. I was just drinking a lot doing it. And for me to mask that, I just stayed back. I would either stay in the barracks or hotel if we were on a road trip, or I'd stay at my house. That way other people couldn't see that. So like, is the alcohol progression, like, is that progressed throughout the years? I started isolating more. And that's when I started noticing I had a problem. And then I started, like, paranoia started setting in when I was back home. I would start getting really paranoid about certain things where I was living, and some of that could have been prescription induced, alcohol induced. I wasn't sleeping for days on end at times. There's other times I was even trying to like mirror almost my deployment life and what that was like, and like I would have my house set up a certain way. We would have a fob, like a forward operating base set up, and that place when I bought it out in the country was supposed to be like my sanctuary for deployments, and it essentially became my living hell.
And this is after your retirement from the Navy?
No, this was while I was still active duty. So this started, like, I bought this place in 2013, 2012, somewhere in there. And then the issues really started surfacing late 2015, early 2016. Early 2016 is when I had my first suicidal attempt. Uh, my dog actually saved my life that time. I've never really shared that story. I can share it if you want.
I haven't even heard this.
So that was January 2016, and that's when I was feeling at an all-time low. And my dog, he wasn't a service dog or anything at the time. He was only about a year and a half old. And he followed me everywhere I went. I was an instructor at the time. So I was taking him every place I went to. And I remember one like late morning going upstairs. I had a 2-bedroom house, and I took like a shirt full of tennis balls up with me, like piled in my shirt because he's a lad, so you throw a ball, he's gonna go run for it. and I couldn't do it down in my own room. I don't know why I had the thought processes I did about going up to this other room, but I went up there to this other room with the pistol, and I remember biting down on the pistol, and I just started throwing tennis balls down the stairway. And I threw one, and this dog just laid right across my head like that. And I threw another one, and he wouldn't budge. I threw another one, and before you know it, I had no more tennis balls to throw, and the dog didn't budge. And like I didn't know what else to do other than break down and start crying. Essentially, I cried myself to sleep and passed out. Woke up in the morning, like in a new frame of mind, thinking, okay, I got a second chance at life. I'm supposed to be here. But that still didn't resonate, still didn't click. It took about 2 more years of that hell before I finally had to quit drinking. And I kept drinking, I kept my drinking going on still. At that point, I hid the whole suicidal ideation and attempt from everybody because I knew that'd be like a deal dropper in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still itching to go back overseas, still itching to get back in the fight. I was trying to be my own doctor essentially and figure out what the heck was going on with me and why I was having these thoughts.
So that was all while you were still in the Navy?
Yeah, I was still active duty then.
So then the second time you were not in the Navy, right?
The second suicidal
Yeah.
attempt. Yeah, the second time. So I was medically retired in June of 2018. And I thought that would fix everything for me. As soon as I got out, I just thought everything would be great. Life would go back to normal. And really, essentially, it was the opposite. The wheels fell off the bus immediately. I was self-medicating at an all-time high. Substance abuse, loads of alcohol. I was on prescriptions, trying to get off some prescriptions, staying on others, taking more of others, taking less of others. And I ended up having a seizure. I went to a dinner party and had a seizure. Dinner party I showed up at, and they had called the ambulance and stuff, and they didn't know what was going on. So I do remember in the back of the ambulance ride to the hospital that the two people working on me, they went to give me an IV, and I heard the one say, "Fuck this guy, just let the ER deal with him. He's gonna die from an OD anyways." And I couldn't talk at the time, but I remember trying to tell him like it's not like I'm not on drugs. I mean, I was probably on alcohol, but like it wasn't a heroin overdose or anything. And I was trying to make that clear to him. And it's like those guys see so much of it. He was just like, "Fuck this guy, let the ER deal with him so we don't have to deal with all the paperwork." And they dumped me off at the ER, and I had a series of I think they called them like grand mal seizures with tonic-clonic seizures
Mm-hmm.
that lasted for quite some time. And um, from what I was told, it was a very interesting episode of things going on within my body and things coming out of my mouth. And they finally put me up in ICU, and I remember coming to an ICU, and I felt a lot more clearer up there. They wanted to do some brain scans to see if there were any damage done from the seizures from that. And that was on a weekend. And once I found out there's no damage done, I literally strapped the back end of my hospital robe and walked out of the hospital and went home and started drinking again.
Immediately?
Yes. Like I didn't ask to be discharged. I didn't ask for any paperwork. They told me my brain was fine. So I said, cool, I'm out.
So what did that lead into? How long did that go on for?
A couple more weeks. So that was the end of August. They're supposed to take your license away.
Yeah.
I lost my license for a little bit, and that still didn't do anything. I was still out driving around, still drinking. And then September 11th of that year, it happened again. I was at an all-time low, and I just remember a friend of mine, he dropped off his dog. They were going out of town, so him and his girlfriend dropped off his dog for me to watch, and they knew something was up with me. They couldn't figure out what it was, but I told them I'd be fine with the dog. And I remember the way my master bedroom was facing. I had a bathroom in there too, and I just knelt down in the bathroom and put the pistol back in my mouth and started the trigger squeeze. And it was dark. It was dark by then, and the way my driveway was, I had like if you pulled in my driveway, you'd see the headlights shine right through the room. and it was a teammate's headlights pulling in my driveway, answering a call to do a welfare check on me. And that stopped. I was so angry at who the hell might have been pulling in my driveway late at night that ultimately saved my life.
Who ordered that?
I'm not 100% sure how all that went down. I know some calls were made to do a check on me because I remember calling back. Like I called my brother to check out with him and tell him like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I just can't like handle this anymore. I don't think I'll ever get better. The pain's too much." Which that's another thing I'd like to talk about. Like when guys are in that state, they think that that pain will never lift or the misery will never go away. No, it will never go away, and it does. It does go away. And that heavy weight starts lifting little by little off your shoulders. It just takes time. But I remember I essentially erased my phone, so I had no contacts in my phone, and I held on to something my brother gave me at his wedding, and then I held on to a card of her name's Marina. She's a Cure Coalition caretaker, and I remember just holding that pistol in my mouth, squeezing, and just praying. Like I don't even pray that. I've since have started praying a lot more, but I remember praying um, as I was squeezing that trigger that please God, if there's anything good left in me, make this go away. And that's when Slade and Heather's car pulled into my driveway. And I was so mad that somebody was over there that I jumped up right away to go see who it was. And that's ultimately what saved my life.
So what is the next step after that when you feel like it's hopeless and there's nothing left to live for? Like what happens the next day?
So it's a little foggy still at that point. Like they came in, they sat with me for a while. You know, at that point, they knew it was very obvious I needed help. We didn't know which direction to go. I mean, he was a former SEAL as well. They were going through their own stuff. I mean, we actually were like not like, but we were a small family. I mean, they lived right down the road, and they were going through their own stuff, but they were there for me nonstop. And that next day, they started looking for treatment centers for me for PTS and substance alcohol abuse, and that's when I got. Um, that's when I became aware of Warrior Retired down in Texas and looked into that. You know, I was supposed to go at the end of September, and September 30th, Slade came over to pick me up to go pick up a door for his wife, like 40 minutes away, that she was going to refinish. And it's really weird. It was a real nice day out. I was going to leave the dog at home. And, Slade's little baby was sleeping in the car, so I didn't want to wake him up. And Slade was like, we almost had midnight. He's like, bring the damn dog. I'm like, no, I'm just going to leave him. I don't want to wake her up. He's like, no, just bring the damn dog. So I brought him, and on the way back, my neighbors were calling nonstop that I need to get home because the fire department's there and my house was on fire. So I was like, okay, what the hell's this about? And I remember thinking on the drive home, like, whatever this is, like, sober life ain't for me. As soon as they let me in the house, I'm going to grab a bottle. I'll start drinking. I'll figure out the rest when I wake up from this next drunk. And it was two fire departments there, a federal, because I had a base right down the street from me. There's a federal fire there, and then the city fire, city of Chesapeake fire. They were putting out a fire, and the whole inside was completely just smoke damage, destroyed. It was all black and charred. And the fire captain came and talked to me, and he walked me through my morning. You know, I told him what I was doing. I said, before Slade picked me up, I was trying to print out a receipt, paid out of pocket for a bed receipt for the treatment center, and the printer wouldn't turn on. So I kept hitting the printer thinking it was a printer and getting angry. And come to find out, the printer was plugged into a surge protector, that the surge protector failed and ultimately caused the fire. So when the fire department let me in, they were like, hey, you can come in now. And I walked immediately over to my liquor cabinet, and it was nothing but a charred thing of rubble and broken glass, and there's no booze left. So I walked outside to the front yard, and I wasn't very religious at all at that point. I walked outside the front yard and dropped to my knees and essentially just started bawling my eyes out and asked God to show me the way. Like obviously my way isn't working. I don't know what way is going to work, but what I'm doing right now is not going to work.
So despite that attempt and your friends pulling up to check on you and agreeing to go into treatment, you still had it in the back of your mind that you were going to drink anyways?
Yeah, at that point, I think I had a death wish. I wanted to drink myself to death, and I thought that would have been the best way to do it. And I also couldn't put it down. I tried throughout the years, like we would always do these dry pushes, with guys at work. We go sober for a couple weeks, then we go hard for months, or we do a 5-week dry push, and that's all I could ever do. And when I first quit drinking, so I quit on September 4th, so I actually had a couple weeks dry before I went down to the treatment center in Texas. So I was already dry for a few weeks because of the fire and all that. It took a little while to get all the paperwork kind of lined up with the insurance company, and I was struggling really bad then on like not being able to drink. And a friend of mine said it best to me. He said, one thing we call in SEAL training, like you call it break it down meal to meal, like Bud style is what they call it. And if you're thinking about quitting, just get to the next meal. If you're thinking about quitting from the time you get up till breakfast, just get to breakfast, have breakfast, then reevaluate your decision on if you want to quit. Chances are you're not going to want to quit. So then if you're thinking about quitting between breakfast and lunch, just get to lunch. And if you're still thinking about quitting then, just get to dinner. And if you're still thinking about quitting then, just get to breakfast the next day. So I didn't even have it in me to make it a full day. AA says take it a day at a time. At that point, I just broke it down Bud style and went, just give me to breakfast without drinking. And I'd get to breakfast and I'd have my breakfast and I'd say, all right, just give me to lunch without drinking. And then once lunch would come, I'd eat my lunch and start doing stuff around the house. And I'd say, all right, just give me to dinner without drinking. And that went on for probably a month and a half before I finally started getting this a little bit better base. Or like, I remember waking up one morning where I wasn't like, booze wasn't the first thing on my mind.
What changed in you? What went from I can't do this, I don't have anything in me, I don't feel worthy, there's nothing good left in my life, to going meal to meal and extending your life bit by bit as the day went on?
The curiosity, to know what it was that was good left in me, because I still didn't have that answer. Even though I had a great family, I have great parents, I have a great brother and sister-in-law with a ton of nieces and nephews. I didn't personally know what I had in me. So it was like that curiosity didn't, it was almost like the curiosity in me of like, well, what is it that I do have good left in me? Like all these series of events have happened now and I'm still here. There's got to be something, like there's got to be a purpose why I'm still here. And I just don't know what it is. And to be honest with you, I'm still trying to figure that out at times. I had it's a couple days after the fire happened at the house, the insurance company sends a arson investigator down, and he happened to just see the case, and he was from like an hour and a half away. And I'm thinking, oh great, this guy, he's an investigator. He's gonna come in thinking, oh yeah. In my head, everything was worst case at that. So he pulls in at 8:30 in the morning, and he gets out of his car, and I'm like, hi, I'm so and so, I'm the owner of the home, and I'm thinking this guy's about to read me the riot act. For 90 minutes, we didn't even talk about the fire. He looked at me, he says, brother, clearly I can tell you're going through something. You're going through something that's very difficult, very hard. And he was a former Marine that we ended up talking. He struggled with drinking for years. And at that point, I think he said he had about 20 years sober. And I ended up telling him that alcohol was a big part of my life that I was struggling with. And he closed out, we still keep in contact to this day. Bobby closed out the conversation with, brother, when I learned to quit putting my sticky fingers in God's plans, things seemed to start unfolding for me. And I try to remind myself that, some once in a while I still get sticky fingers when I want something, I'm human. But then I try to back off and, you know, leave it to, I'm not necessarily very faith-based. I do believe in a higher power. It's more a spiritual realm than anything. I don't think I'd be here today without it, but that is what I tend to rely on when things are getting very difficult in my life.
Did you feel like something was missing?
As far as what?
Like a purpose? Like when you were going through your days and struggling just to get, I mean, the people go through these 30-day challenges or they go a dry month, but like you said, just to get to the next meal was sometimes a struggle, let alone talking about taking it one day at a time. When you are in that place of, I don't want to be here anymore, I can't find a reason to be here anymore, did you feel like something was missing?
Yeah, wholeheartedly, which is purpose. Yeah, I think you said that in the beginning.
Yeah.
I had such purpose in the team I was in that when I didn't have that anymore, I did not know how to cope without it, and I didn't know how to find purpose again. Uh, the SEAL teams were everything to me, like I think it is most people that are in that line of work. Some guys I think do a better job of balancing that out. I had no balance at all with that, and when I quit deploying and went to be an instructor, I just felt like that purpose went away. Like I wasn't ready to become an instructor. I just wanted to keep deploying at that time. And I tried to escape that purpose with a bottle of Jack Daniel.
Do you think it had anything to do with the structure or the missions or always having that something to do?
Um, yes, yeah, in a way, like I think it's common, at least from the docs I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of them over the years. They all say the same, like if they one of the questions they asked me, like, if it was a perfect world for you, what would you do? And my answer is like, oh, I'd go back overseas in a heartbeat. My life was much more simple over there. I had everything I need. I had 3 squares a day. I had a badass gym. I had all my brothers around me. And if we weren't out on a mission, we were either doing Fight Club, working out, or we were just together talking about the next mission or just talking about fun times. And I don't know what other better environment to be in than that? I mean, I've never had my own family of my own, so I can't speak on that. Some guys say like once you have a family that changes everything. I've never had that. Like my longing has always been just to go back overseas and be with the boys.
But then to interject, the guys that do have a family still end up in the same position. I can speak from experience on that end. So it's almost like that life purpose. We don't talk about that. We don't go over that. It's a missing piece to a lot of people's puzzle because we don't ever set out on a mission. We go through school and nobody talks about your life purpose. You go through your military training and they give you purpose. They don't help you find what your personal purpose is, right? It's this set up, almost set in stone, handed to you on a paper. Here's your purpose, here's your mission, get it done.
Yeah, and essentially, I mean, they cultivate you into that warrior. I hate to use the word brainwashed, but you are, and I think there's a purpose behind that to be able to make you do that and have that type of mindset. Because I don't think it would necessarily work any other way than that.
What affected your life more, the alcohol drinking or the suicide attempts?
That's a great question. Uh, I don't think I'd be where I am today without having alcohol in my life if it wasn't for the suicide attempts. I still think I would be trying to battle that. I can handle a few type thing, or I can handle my alcohol if it wasn't for that. It took me going away to treatment to try to, for I forget how many days it was to get to get a clear picture of when the alcohol started, how I used it, why I was using it, and all that. To realize like alcohol just doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve things I already have going on internally. It doesn't. There's no positives for me to drink alcohol. And I always tell like people always ask me, well, do you think I'll ever drink again? I don't know. I don't know. Like I don't know if I have another sober left in me. I definitely know I have another. I have 1,000 drunks left in me. Is what I always tell people. But I'm pretty confident I won't drink the rest of today. Fairly confident tomorrow I'll wake up not wanting any alcohol, but I don't know what the days after that brings. So that's where that whole one day at a time comes in.
You and I have talked a lot about where do you turn to? Where do you go? What is the thing? And people ask both of us a lot. What is the one thing I can do? What can fix me? What can save me? And there isn't.
You have to save yourself.
Do you feel like you saved yourself?
I believe I put in the work to do that, yes, but it was with, an army of people behind me and supporters, like the first step in it for me was wanting to make that change myself. So yes, like you can't get sober, you can't make that change for your family. You can't do it for a job. You can't do it for any other reason other than yourself. And that sounds selfish, but to get sober and away from those kind of things and that grip, that has such a grip on your life, you have to become extremely selfish to be able to get sober. Because it doesn't work if you do it. You see so many people throughout the years that, well, I did it for my wife the first time. Well, you're here for the fourth. Or, oh, I did it for my kids for this last time. Well, you're here for the fifth. Or, well, work made me do it this last time. Well, you're here for the second time. Like once you accept the fact that you're here for yourself and only yourself, that's when I think a shift starts to happen. Like it's a paradigm up here. And I was just lucky enough where I didn't have a girlfriend. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids or anything. When I left for treatment, I finally said, I shut off all outside distractions and said, I am only focusing on me and what's going to help me stay away from alcohol. And then I'm going to start slowly building on that foundation.
So your curiosity to find out what your purpose is and what could be next for you in life is what was your like wake up call, because you can't do it for your mom, you can't do it for your brother, you can't do it for your kids, like you said, because then you end up coming back every single time because you have to save yourself. You can't expect somebody else to save you at the same time either. And these places that you go to don't save you. There's not, oh, if you just go to this place over here in Michigan, or if you just try this place in Texas, that'll solve all your problems. That doesn't work either.
No, it doesn't. You have to want to solve your problem and you have to want to put in the work. No place is perfect. There's no one-stop shop for anything. I've done some, you and I've talked about it offline a bit. Like I went down to the alcohol PTS substance abuse program. That was your typical AA style program. Mm-hmm. But I've also done plant medicine journeys that are unorthodox to a lot of people. And that is what changed my life completely. So after I did my stint in rehab, I spent about 6 or 7 months working with a coach, an integration coach, leading up to what they call the ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT. Mm-hmm. And I worked with her for a long time on the mindset behind it, what to expect with medicine, or what not to expect may be a better term instead of what to expect. They say not to have any expectations, but to set intentions when you're doing it. So I went July of that year down to Mexico and I did an ibogaine and toad venom journey, and that completely saved my life. It changed my life for the better. I am someone that has depression, that I deal with depression on a regular basis. And those two medicines alone wiped out depression for a good 10 to 12 months alone. But it wasn't, even that's not a one-stop fix all. Like you can't just go down and take the medicine and then all of a sudden you're better. Like you have to integrate that as well. And I worked, like I said, I worked with the integration coach leading up to it. Then I worked with the integration coach post journey too for about another 7 months. And then I just paid out of pocket for another year to do it. And that's a problem with a lot of the unorthodox treatments is, and one of the reasons I do what I do now to nonprofits is, as screwed up as it sounds, we're out here raising money for ourselves to go get help.
Mm-hmm.
Because with the help we're getting at the VA is, I'm not, this isn't me talking trash about the VA. It's a government ran program and they have to do what they have to do. But the real help's out there with what we're doing, like raising money and sending guys at these unorthodox treatments and these treatments that can actually get down to the root cause of what's going on and not just give them another pill or another something else to try just to mask the symptom versus getting down to the root cause of the symptom.
So these plant medicine journeys help, but you said they last like 10 to 12 months. So it doesn't fix anything. That's not a cure. But what is it doing? Just giving you the space to work on those root causes? It's giving you the clear mind? Is it setting the depression aside so you can get after what those root causes are?
That's a great question. I mean, I'd have to go back in my journal and kind of reflect a little bit more to get like a solid answer to you. But essentially, I would say yes. Like it did give me, like once it wiped the depression away, it gave me, I was able to focus more on just what I was doing in the present moment, and I felt present. A lot of times now, like that's since 2019. Like my thoughts are all over the place. In this conversation, I'm thinking about 30 other things going on right now. When I came out of that, it was like right in the moment of every little thing. And like the beautiful thing about that medicine is yeah, sure, it's very scary at times, but it allows you to make peace with so much stuff going on. Like the way the ibogaine works, it's like a filing cabinet in your head where it's like, the body keeps the score and it remembers everything. So when you go into those journeys, it's like rifling through your brain and it's like, oh, you don't want to talk about this? Let's pull this file out anyways and see where you want to go. And until you're willing to make peace with it, then that file goes away and you're on to the next file. And that just goes on and on and on for 10 to 12 hours. And then you come out of that and you feel like a changed person. I mean, you really are a changed person. It allows you the opportunity, like I think I already said, to make peace with certain choices you made, whether it's overseas as a child or adult choices, whatever it may be.
Yeah. So there wasn't one program that you went into that was like, okay, here I am back, everything's good. It's like this lifelong process now.
Yeah, to me, that's what it is. For me to stay sober and on the journey I am is forever going to be my lifelong work. And that's something that I have to work on daily. Sometimes I break it down hourly if I'm having a shitty day. I am human. There's days I skip it, but I've also created a network of other guys that are either sober from alcohol or whatever their drug of choice may be, or some certain other addictions they had, whether it's not drugs or alcohol. And we rely on each other just to kind of check in here and there, and like we're still human at the end of the day. We're all going through some type of shit together. I mean, I think we ended up meeting essentially like that too, right? This past winter, like you had your own stuff going on, and here we are, a crazy bunch of people breaking up ice in the middle of January just to get cold for 5 to 6 minutes and uncomfortable, and being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And that brought in, I mean, the first year I did it with a friend of mine, and it was her and I would do it and invited people, and like you came once and one other guy came once, and then it grew into like 16 people wanting to come and do it. And there's something to be said about it. The whole reason I'm bringing that up is community. When you get away from drugs, alcohol, or other negative things that are affecting your life, you have to replace that with community. And they always say the opposite of addiction is connection. And I feel that. But I also try to approach things now with compassion. I don't always get that part right, but I do try.
I always, well, not, I shouldn't say I always, but the more I learn about this, the more I understand that addiction of whatever it might be, whatever the vice of choice is, alcohol, drugs, gambling, Netflixing, whatever it is a disconnect from the
your true self, from what's going on, from your circumstances. So when you say that the opposite of addiction is connection, I mean, that explains it pretty clear. But my point to all that is this isn't something you can do on your own, right?
No, you need community to do it.
So what he was talking about was when we were breaking ice, that is ice dipping in the river. So there, not only are there physical benefits to it, but there's this mental aspect of it as well. So you're mentally challenging yourself because it's so freaking cold, and you're physiologically challenging yourself because it's working with your nervous system. But we didn't do that alone. I didn't go out in that river by myself. And I mean, you did sometimes, but, but for the most part, 99% of the time we were out there as a crew, whether that was just 2 of us or there was 16 of us, we were doing it together. And for whatever it was that we were going through individually, we were going through it together. And that's what AA does. That's what treatment centers do. That's what recovery programs do. That's what these plant medicine journeys do, is they walk you through this so you're not alone. That's where faith comes in. Christians are walking through their journey with Jesus, and it's so that you don't feel alone. So how did this change relationships? How does alcohol, well, back up 1 second. What role does alcohol play now? Are you controlled drinker? Do you not drink?
No,
No.
I'm not a controlled drinker.
Is controlled drinking a thing?
No,
I don't.
for me, it's not. For a lot of people, it is. I'm at, if I look here, I mean, I keep a daily tracker just for myself, just to know where I'm at with this kind of stuff.
Like day sober?
Yeah, and it's, I don't know what it is. September 4th will be 6 years if I get to September. But I'm not trying to look that too far ahead.
Right.
So I'm at, whatever it is, 5.5 months, 5.5 years. No, there's no controlled drinking. I cut alcohol completely out of my life. I don't judge. That's one thing that is hard when you first get away from drinking, is most of the people that you're with or you have established relationships with, they all are currently drinking. And sometimes what they say is the one thing that has to change when you quit drinking is everything has to change, meaning friends, family, all that.
Environment.
And environment. And I had to do that, and it's not that I didn't love those guys. I love those guys to pieces. They'll be some of my best friends till the day I die. But I can't be around that environment all the time anymore. It's nothing against them. I have no judgment towards anybody that drinks. Hell, sometimes I wish I could just go out and still have a few beers and just enjoy myself, but I can't. I'm just not that type of drinker. And I found that my life's way, way more healthier, and the relationships in it without the alcohol are a lot better. So that's why I choose not to do it.
So how did all this change your relationships? You lost, I mean, not lost, but maybe you had to distance some friendships, or
Some I've distanced. Some of that I think was just natural ebb and flow of life. As you get older, careers take on, marriages take on. I'm in my early 40s, so most of my friends are all raising kids. I'm single and no kids, so there's 2 totally drastic different lifestyles right there. So you take away the alcohol out of that, and it's just when you're raising a family versus a bachelor getting it. When I'm able to go travel wherever the hell I want, and my other friends raising 3 kids, like that's 2 drastically different things, whether the alcohol's there or not. Um, I do tend to stay away from it a little bit more than I normally would, like on a conscious level. Like I don't. It's not like I'm out at parties very often, or if I do go to a party, it's usually to say hello and say hi to. But once I see people are on the verge of feeling pretty good, I tend to make myself busy doing something else, or I do I'm classic for the Irish goodbye.
yeah, just disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what pisses you off about the current conversation around alcoholism or suicide?
Um,
Because they go hand in hand. It's, I mean,
alcoholism for me, I think the most irritating thing is when guys start talking about, well, he can at least have one, or what's his big deal? Like, get his shit together. Like, some guys just can't. They have that control. Like, the alcohol has the control over them, where it's all or nothing. You're either all in or you're all out. And if you're all in with alcohol and you have a problem, sooner or later it is going to catch up and kill you. That's where my struggle comes in, where it's like I just want to support guys that I know plenty of guys that have tried over the years, and I was one of them. Doing the sober, whatever they call that, sober January, fucking sober October. I don't know what it's called. Trying that kind of stuff. That's one thing that irritates me a little bit is once a guy tells me like, "Hey man, I want to get free from alcohol. I want to break free of those chains." I'm all in. I want to support him any way I can. I'm not here to half-ass that or just say like, "Oh well, good luck, buddy." Like anything I can do to help him out and get him on his feet, because sooner or later, like that one day will turn into a week. That week will turn into 2 weeks. 2 weeks will turn into 30 days. Before you know it, one of my best friends just did a post on the social webs that said, "I never thought I'd see it, but I just hit 8 months alcohol free." And that filled up my soul. Like, no, because I know where he came from. And like to see, I sat on his couch the day he was not doing so well, talking to him like how he wants to go about that, how he wants to get off of it. And to see 8 months later, here he is celebrating 8 months of alcohol free, and he's looks like he's thriving in life. And then as far as the suicide, what angers me about the suicide talk is we just need more support out there. We need more help. The questions of why could somebody do that, or one of them that I really can't stand is hearing how selfish it is that one does that. Only personally speaking, is I never felt selfish when I was in that state of mind. I felt that I was doing the world a better, like I was making the world a better place by leaving it, because I felt so terrible about myself at the time. So when it's a stigma around this, people are being selfish when they do this. I understand where they're coming from, because the weight they're leaving behind and the people that are left behind to pick up the pieces and deal with that and deal with the loss and the grief that comes with it. That person alone, I would bet to believe that he is not feeling selfish at the time. He's hurting, he feels alone, and he feels like he's doing the world a better place by leaving it. And that couldn't be farther from the truth either, because once a little help steps in and you're ready to get some help, life's going to turn around, and I'm pretty confident in that.
but they have to reach out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for somebody who is sitting in a room alone, thinking, I messed up, I'm so ashamed of my entire life. I've been to rehab already. I've tried to quit drinking. I've tried to leave the drugs behind, but I've lost my job. I've lost my way. I don't know what to do. The only thing I can think of is to just not be here anymore, because everybody will be better off without me. Is there a second chance? Is there another opportunity to reach out?
Absolutely, I think there is. My first thought would be like, let's deep dive the plan. What went wrong the first time? Why did you do it the first time? Was he doing it the first time because of his family and he thought that's what was going to fix him? Was he doing it the first time because he didn't want to lose his job or his license? Like, once we can get some of those things start to figure out those things, then maybe we can start saying, all right, it's time for you to be selfish. Your family and all these people love you. All your friends love you. They are going to wrap their arms around you. Right now is a time just for you to be completely selfish, dive back into the program, because at one point that program worked, right? That person was healthy. They were thriving, right? They didn't have the tools to carry on with that. Maybe some of that is because when they went into it, they went into it for the wrong reasons. When they went into it thinking, I'm doing this for my wife, I'm doing this for my kids. You can't have that mentality when you're trying to get off drugs and alcohol. It has to be, I'm doing this for myself. Because once you do it for yourself, your family and friends get the benefits of all of it.
So is that something you have to remind yourself about all the time? Are you always looking to do this for yourself so that you are better for your family and your friends?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think at this point in my life, I don't think there's anybody that would care if I picked up a beer. I mean, they might make a comment to me or something, but if they saw me crack a beer, they'd probably just be like, "Yeah, he's been sober long enough." Like they wouldn't even think twice about it. Like it's on me. It's a very selfish, like, people a lot of times will look at me and say like, "Oh, I'm a very selfless person," or they don't use the word selfish when it comes to me. I am an extremely selfish individual, very selfish with my time, with what I'm around, with who I'm around. The alcohol thing is huge for me. I will not risk anything certain. I won't risk cracking a beer just to gain notoriety or like to be friends or to get something out of something. So that's why I say like that selfish piece really has to come into play. Like, to go back to your original question though, is there a second chance? There's always a second chance.
There's always another chance.
Yes.
Would you say that it's an addictive personality type person? Is that even a thing?
I think it's a thing. I mean, I've been told I've got addictive personality. I can't really argue that. I don't know what it is. Sometimes I like to just say I go in, I'm either all in or all out. I get a little tired with labels when it comes to doctors and everything at this point in my life. So there's a troop chief. He said it best in one of his in briefs. He's since passed on, but one of his quotes was, all in all the time. And whether that's in with your family, your job, whatever it may be, this life I'm living now, like this is where I use his quote now, is all in all the time. And that's why I pick up my phone at 2 a.m. if I hear it. Sometimes I don't hear it. Sometimes you get a couple once or twice, 2 or 3 times. But like I will always pick up the phone for somebody because at this point I'm all in. And that comes from what I learned, those are lessons I learned in the SEAL teams. Totally different context, but it applies to what my purpose is now.
Oh, for sure. So I asked the addictive personality question because alcohol is not the problem. It's the reason that you're grabbing for it. It's the reason that you're seeking drugs or numbing yourself out with gambling or TV shows or whatever it is that's separating you from the reality piece that is just eating away at you. Alcohol is what somebody might reach for to numb that, but they become addicted to the numbing mechanism. So when you're being selfish, does that include constantly doing the mental health work, which is another thing we have a really hard time talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first it comes selfish with getting away from the alcohol, but then you have to develop new routines. Your old routines aren't going to work. That routine of cracking a beer and then cracking six more and then going gambling after that, then the highs and lows of gambling. And then once you lose your money, you're seeking out drugs after that. Like that's a vicious cycle. You have to replace all that with a new routine, right? Whether that's finding your faith and diving deep into faith. From what I've learned over like with my faith-based friends is Jesus is always going to answer their call and he's always going to be there for you. He's never going to judge you. You're already forgiven for what you've done. That's a whole another realm I haven't dove into. I actually just recently opened up a Bible to start getting curious about some of this stuff. Me personally, I had to just change what my morning routines look like. It was like I said, make it breakfast without alcohol. It was usually some type of workout and then breakfast. And then getting into lunch or now I replace it with the cold dips in the morning, at 6 a.m. and we're getting in the water. Now that it's warmer out, I'm just going for a swim. Um, but I do a lot of readings now too, like a lot of philosophy readings or self-help books, more or less. Like I dive deep into self-help books. I'm destined one day to figure out a way to be a healthy person to show up for a healthy relationship and hopefully establish a healthy monogamous relationship with somebody. So I'm like, big into trying to learn how to show up for somebody like that, not just show up for them, but show up for me too, and understand my own needs, because I spent a career forgetting my own needs and just putting them all to the wayside to get the mission done. And I stand behind that still to this day, and I would do it again. If the Navy called me, like, that is, I don't have really any regrets, other than the only regret I do have is I wish I would have I wish I would have reached out for the help and asked for that 4 letter word, picked up that 1,000 pound phone while I was still active duty, to get the help I needed while I was active duty, so I could still stay.
That I need help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the Navy was there. The Navy was trying to help me for a couple of years. I just hid it from them, or I lied to them, more or less. I mean, they wanted to help me out. That is the only like regret I do have, because I feel like if I would have got the help while I was still active duty, I'd probably still be in to this day.
In the Navy?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
I had no intentions on getting that, but I didn't know what else there was for me.
So, okay, with that said, other people helped you get to where you needed to be and do the things you needed to do. Do you feel like paying that back and helping other people is a piece to staying sober and mentally stable and secure?
It's a great question. I don't know necessarily how to answer it in that context, other than I can give you the why I do that. So when I was first getting sober, and when I was first going through my struggles, I had a group of people. One of them I'll call the Dragon. I don't want to, I don't want to give his name out. Uh, the other is Slade and Heather. I'm comfortable talking about them. Frank and his wife Tina. Um, the Dragon and Kelly. They invited me. They were just, what it was is they opened up their homes to me. There was never any, what are you doing? They were never questioning me. It was just, please come over for dinner. Please spend time with us. They answered, what I'm getting at is they answered the call anytime I called. And at that point, I was spending 2 years down in Virginia rebuilding my house from that house fire.
Mm-hmm.
So I was already out of the Navy. And like, once you're out of the teams, once you're off that speeding train, you're left alone. You got to figure it out on your own. That's just the way the culture is. They're getting better at it. But these particular people just opened up not just their homes and their arms to me, but their hearts. And I genuinely felt that from them. I mean, the compassion these people showed me is why I turn the way I do towards people now, and pick up that phone when they call. And usually I know when that certain person's calling, it's not a social call. That's not why they're calling. So I'll always take it. And a lot of times they just want to hear you. They just want to be able to hear themselves talk. They want somebody to listen. Then the next day when I check in on them, I always say a prayer when we hang up that they stay and they live to see the sunrise come up. And I usually check in on them, and they're in a way better place, or they're already making phone calls on a treatment center to get into. So, I mean, that definitely does help me stay focused on the path I'm on, but I'm still searching for what my purpose is.
Your purpose, yeah. So, okay, what do you want to be remembered for in this life?
Great question. I've never really gave thought to what I wanted to be remembered for.
What would just make your heart smile? What would like fill you? Is it to know that you picked up the phone call for these people that reached out to you? Like,
I'd rather just be known for not being known, like just as a passerby, or like somebody explained the word sonder to me best. And if you don't know it, look it up. It's a great word. Sonder and it's every passerby is going through something just as vividly as you are. And if I was to be known for anything, it would just be making that one passerby's life just change, whether it be with a smile or a quick conversation. Like, I don't need to be known for any drastic thing, or like lay my mark down this way or that way. Like, if I just help one other person, one other soul out, decide to say, hey, I'm either going to make this change, like whether it's getting off alcohol, or hey, I'm going to join the Navy to go be a Navy SEAL, or I'm going to start this business because this business is calling to me. Like, that's going to fill my soul up more than any other big thing that's like this is what so and so did throughout his life. I don't
Mhm.
care about that. I'm just out living my life.
Well, that made you smile.
Yeah.
So what's the best part of your day?
Waking up and getting down to the water.
That's what makes you happy.
Yeah.
Is that something you'd recommend to somebody to look for, to find something good in the day?
Yeah, you have to every day. There's something good about every day, whether it's a reading. Yeah, I do a daily reading I do anywhere from 1 to like 6 daily reading. I got fucking books all over my house, daily readings. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to have some type of positive routine when you wake up out of bed. And it's not necessarily picking up this thing and scrolling through that, it's diving deep into books or just, before you even look at your phone, maybe taking your dog for a walk as the sun comes up or taking those damn shoes off your feet and walking around barefoot for a little while,
real.
just earthing, getting into the ground. If water's your thing, I recommend as long as you're comfortable in the water, go get in the water. First thing in the morning, you'd be amazed how you feel getting out of it.
So that all goes back to being that selfish person, to filling yourself before you start your day or before you tap into other people or to the entire world when you start looking at your phone,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you can tap into yourself, you can heal yourself.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And how do you truly give back to people when your cup's half empty all the time? And you see those guys, and I see them throughout my life, and I try to talk to them. And you can tell they're constantly going from one thing to the next because they're just trying to stay busy because of what's going on in their internal. You know what I mean? If you can fill up your own cup first, it's just going to start overflowing into all the cups around you.
But even for somebody who doesn't even have a cup half full, like it's dry as a bone. There's those guys in the darkest place that you could be right now, not a glimmer of light where they're at. There's still opportunity to change, but
Absolutely.
they've got to do it. You've got to do it for yourself.
I think that's the biggest piece when they're that low is talking with them and letting them know it is okay, whether they have a family, a wife, a great job or not, like letting them know it is okay to do this all for you right now and only for you.
Even if you've lost your family and your wife and your job and your car and everything.
Because sooner or later, life will turn back around.
Nobody can save you from your addiction or depression. That's up to you to get up and get moving, despite how hard it's going to be. You can't get better for someone else either. Not your kids, your parents, not your husband or wife, or your employer, and not your family and friends. It will not work. That's why relapse happens and people end up back in treatment or rehab for the second, the third, the fifth, or ninth time. You have to be willing to get curious to find out what your current life's purpose is. Then and only then will the tools and resources that you sign up for help you to heal your mental state and allow those addictions to fade away. You have to get better because you want to get better. This world is a better place with you in it. Promise. You don't have to believe that yet. You just have to have the curiosity to find out what that is and what life could be like as you get healthy. And that's when you start adding people back in your life. Not just any people, only the people who add to your new, better self and whose lives are also in a better place with the updated and better version of you.